Before I begin this podcast, I would like to explain Newton's law of viscosity. Newton's law of viscosity says that the viscosity of a liquid changes only with its temperature. The colder it gets, the more viscous. So in the case of a non-Newtonian fluid, the viscosity also changes with pressure. So a cornstarch and water mixture is known as a non-Newtonian fluid. So its viscosity will change with pressure, not just hot or cold. So what I'm going to do with this podcast is show you what you can do with the cornstarch water mixture and how its viscosity reacts when you apply pressure and when you don't. What you'll need for this project is some normal cornstarch. Just out the way, some cornstarch, which you can buy at Target, Publix, Sam's Club. I would assume Costco would have it, but when I went, they didn't. So, and some water. Now, for every gallon of water, you need 10 pounds of cornstarch. However, when I went to Target, I cleaned them out, and they only had 9. So I'm going to, what's the word I'm going to use? I'm going to redistribute how much water I use so this project can work. What you also need is really any type of bowl. Depends on what you're going to do with it. Because I have a gallon. This bowl is pretty much enough to have someone, step in it. And I'll explain that later in this project. So, to reiterate, you will need cornstarch, water, something to put it in. You may also need a towel to clean up the mess because this project does make quite a mess. But here we go. Okay, before you start, I'll suggest changing your shirt from something nice to something you really don't care if it gets messed up. I also say be by a sink. So, spills happen, it goes in the sink, and easier to clean up. So, of course, you're going to start by first putting the starch in and then adding water. So, here we go. Okay, after you mix the water and the starch together, you should get something that looks like this. I don't know if you can see it. I'll put it in the sink for you and aim it down. Take my hands. It's gross. Alright. You should get something like this. It's a liquid, yet it's also a solid. And since I don't want to get my hands dirty, I'm going to have my assistant demonstrate this effect for me. As you see, when you hit it with force, you don't sink. It acts like a solid. Now let's see when you apply no force, your hand just sinks like it's a liquid. And then when you pull out softly with no force, your hand easily slides out. When you apply force as you're pulling, it gets stuck. It forms back into a solid. Why does this happen? I'll walk you through it. Oh, alright. As you saw, once we added the water and cornstarch together and mixed it up, we got a non-Newtonian liquid. Non-Newtonian liquid is not really a solid, but it's not really a fluid either. Similar fluids are ketchup, honey, and a few other things, but the more common ones are honey and ketchup, are also considered non-Newtonian liquid fluids. But the reason it does this is because of Newton's law of viscosity. Newton's law of viscosity says that the viscosity of a liquid changes only with its temperature. The colder it gets, the more viscous. However, in the case of a non-Newtonian fluid, the viscosity also changes with pressure. So if you hit it continuously, that you're applying pressure.
So it's going to get hard because of Newton's law of viscosity. So using his law, you could also theoretically, besides walking on it, you can roll it into a ball. You can use it to hold up against two things smashing together if you want to do the experiment like that. All right, that was my podcast for the George Stewart's physics class from 1 to 9 on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the month of March. I hope everyone enjoyed this, and maybe now you feel the need to go test this experiment out yourself. It's a really cool one to do, and it's a fun thing to do at parties.